Okay, this is Hillbillies in the Bush. I've thought about doing this video for quite some time. This is not going to be, well, it's kind of a bushcraft video, but it's also for the prepper community. This is something you guys might want to think about. Now, I've seen a lot of videos out there where guys have really got a lot of preps going on. They've pretty much covered anything that they could possibly think of. But one of the things I haven't noticed was I don't see any of them practicing any kind of bushcraft. And by that I mean, should God forbid anything happen to your preps, or you get separated from them, or have to leave them, or whatever, and you don't have alternative plans, which, you know, some of you do, I'm sure. But, you know, something as simple as fire. Fire is one of the key elements in life, because if you're in any type of wilderness situation or anything, yeah, you can drink water, you're going to get sick, and you may die. But if you have fire, you can boil that water in some way or another in a container, or you can make containers. But fire is a pretty key element in a survival situation. I know a lot of guys will say, well, I've stocked up on a lot of these, which is great, and a lighter is a good thing to have, lots of lighters. But, you know, what happens if you've only got one, and for some reason it quits working on you? Okay, well, you might have a backup, which you might have some of these. Matches. Matches are okay too, and so they got some really nice ones that are waterproof and windproof, and they work really well, but eventually these may run out also. Have any of you thought of maybe primitive ways of making fire? For instance, probably after matches, lighter matches, I would recommend maybe a ferrocerium rod. Ferrocerium rod probably is the king of all your primitive ways of making fire. It's flint and steel basically taken to the next level. And, you know, of course, I'm sure all of you seen these. Some of you guys may have them. You know, you can put out some really hot sparks with these things, and they do a great job starting fires. But, okay, let's say you've tried this. Ferrocerium rod's really good because it will last a long time. It's real lightweight, easy to carry. As long as you got a striking surface, you know you're good to go. But have you practiced? Say you got some of these, but have you actually practiced making a fire with them? Because if you don't practice things and you get into a tough situation, and you know, things aren't going well, and it can be tough to make a fire out in the woods if the woods is all damp. You got wet tinder, you know, and stuff like that. You know, it helps to practice some of the stuff that you've got. Maybe you have that. Another thing you might have or might have thought of is flint and steel. Flint and steel was used, you know, for hundreds of years. They used flint and steel. And basically you have something of a hard carbon steel that you strike it against a hard rock like flint, or some kind of hard rock like that, and it gives you a spark to light some char cloth with. Or you can make char cloth, or cattail, you can make char cattail. That works really well. But, okay, so you've got some of this stuff. Have you ever actually tried using it? I mean, have you built fires with it? You know, these are some of the things that, you know, if you've got all your stuff in order, you might want to fall back on some primitive things, because, in my opinion, bushcraft is sort of a form of primitive prepping. You know, guys make spoons, they make all bowls and stuff like that. Well, you know, it's so that they can use them next time. But if you've got this stuff and you've never used it, and you have to use it in a pinch, you're going to find out that it's going to be tough. If not, you know, you won't be able to do it. Moving on down the list, some of the other things would be like a bow drill. You got your, you know, and then there's a lot of videos on this stuff. You know, you got your spindle, you got your fireboard, you got a socket, you got a bow. You know, that's puts in there, and this basically spins with a bow. And you get a coal. That coal is the same thing as you would get if you was using char cloth and a flint and steel, and you put it in a tinder bundle and blow it to life. There again, you know, and yes, this kit's already made up, you know, and it is a proven kit, which I recommend you do. Get you something proven. There's a lot of good videos out there. One that comes to mind is Dave Wendell with Bushcraft on Fire, and I'll put a link down below. You can check out his videos. He does an excellent video on making fire with bow and drill sets, and he goes through what types of wood you use. I think he prefers white cedar, and you can go to a local hardware store and get it. I prefer red cedar, and this is stuff that I've hacked out of dead trees and made the boards. You know, here's another board. You know, if your technique is right, a lot of guys will tell you you cannot use certain woods, this and that, but I've actually built fires with hickory. With a hickory spindle and a hickory board, if your technique is right and you've done a lot of fires, you can do it with a bow drill. I've done it. But I've built over 100 fires and probably under 200 fires with a bow drill set. Now a lot of guys will tell you they built thousands of them. Well, stop and think what it would take to build thousands of fire with a bow and drill set. If you built over 100 fires with a bow drill set, I would say that you've actually mastered the craft. Do you need to? Probably not. I mean, as long as you got lighters and matches and stuff, but it's something to think about. Yes, you should set you up a little bow drill set and become proficient enough with it to, because this is stuff you can all make out in the woods. This is just a hickory branch. Now, granted, this is tarred trout line or bank line, whatever you want to call it. Shoelaces will work, paracord will work. And it brings up another thing. Have any of you ever twisted your own rope and made your own cordage in the woods? This happens to be a real fine piece right here for fishing. But, you know, you can make it reverse wrap, or you can do a braid, you know, like the Indian braid. And then, of course, you know, depending on what you need, you might want to make a long piece. And this is just some of the stuff that I made. This happens to be made out of yucca. But you can make it out of steam nettle, cattail. There's all kinds of stuff that you can make cordage out of for your bow drill set should you not have any shoestrings or your shoestring break. There's different things you can make, you know, and this goes back into, have you guys thought of this stuff? You know, cordage is something that's really important to have. If you don't have it and you go want to tie something up, you're going to have to make some cordage. And yeah, there again, you've got rope and everything else in maybe your preps, but you know, this is some of the things you guys might want to think about that you may have not thought about, or maybe you have and haven't taken the time to do it. If everything's in order, I would recommend setting you up a bow drill set, getting you a flint and steel set, doing some fires with a ferrocerium rod. You know, and then it goes on down to hand drill. Now these are two of my hand drills. This one happens to be cattail. This one happens to be mullein weed. Mullein, I prefer mullein over cattail. Cattail is real flexible, and you've got to use a lot of pressure to make a hand drill fire. I'm not as proficient with a hand drill fire as I am with a bow drill fire. Basically because, I mean, yes, I can start fires with a hand drill, but your components have to be a lot, the components are more critical. The dampness of the wood has a lot to do with it. You can horse your way, even if your wood is slightly damp, and I don't mean wet, soaking wet or anything like that. If it's dry wood, started out dry, and you dropped it in some snow or something, you can pick it up and you can horse your way through a fire with a bow drill because you've got all that pressure, downward pressure on it. But you know, your fireboard's a little bit different on a hand drill. Obviously, you're not going to want a big old thick honking piece of wood. You know, it's better to have a little thinner. Different things like, for instance, this is a yucca spindle. Yucca is probably one of my favorite because it has one of the lowest flash points of any wood out there. This here will produce a coal with a bow drill wicked fast. A lot faster than, say, your cedars or any other wood you're going to use. I really prefer yucca. The problem with it is it has a pithy center unless you get it before it completely dries out, and dry it out yourself. Here's a piece that's green, and it's relatively hard inside because I've cut it while the flowers were on, or blossoms were on. Which brings up another thing. Yucca has a lot of uses. I mean, you can use it for making soap, the roots. The actual petals on the flower are edible. I've eaten them. It'll surprise you how thick they are and how crunchy like lettuce they taste. Or they don't taste, they're crunchy like lettuce. The taste isn't really all that great. It isn't all that bad, which in a wilderness plant, anytime you can eat something and say, wow, that's not bad, that's good. Because most of that stuff out there that's edible, in my opinion of what I've tried, not is all that palatable. I mean, you can eat it and it'll keep you alive, give you vitamins and stuff, but you know, it's just some of it's not, and some of it's downright nasty. But just some of the things to think about, you know, stimulate the thoughts, and I wanted to put this video out for a while, and I talked to some guys on Skype, and they said, well, you should, because, maybe you thought of it, and maybe you just haven't had the time to do it yet, or something like that. It might pay you to go ahead and build you a bow drill set. And if you can build a fire with a bow drill set and crank a few out, chances are you may be able to do it in a wilderness situation, or if you get separated or you're somehow away from something, practice it in a controlled environment, controlled situation, and later, once you get the technique down and you get a few fires under your belt, there's a good possibility you'll be able to do it out in the woods with nothing and make your own stuff. It's a lot harder, takes a lot more work. But I just wanted to see what you guys' comments are on this, and like I say, it's not for my bushcrafters. These guys, some of this stuff right here is old news to them. They've already been there and done that. This is more for the prepping community, because you got all your preps in place or whatever for any scenario you might think will happen, or won't happen, or whatever. But you're always looking for other stuff, and if you don't at least try some of this stuff, in my opinion, if push comes to shove, you get separated or whatever, and you have no way of making a fire in a primitive way, you're in trouble. You're really hurting, because you have no way of boiling water. If you take somehow grab a little propane stove on the run, that's going to run out. You can wait around for lightning to strike something and catch on fire, but you might be pretty daggone hungry or thirsty by the time that happens. But anyway, just some thoughts to kick around. I'd like to see some comments on this, or even better, do maybe a video response on it, telling me your thoughts if you've thought of it, or you have thought of it and tried it. If you can do it, I'd be interested to see what some of the guys have to say about this. Thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll see y'all later.